The hidden betrayal. Earth had always been a peaceful planet, surrounded by the vast wonders of space. For years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Council, a group of alien species that governed the galaxy. Earth's leaders trusted the Council, believing they were part of something bigger, something important. The Council had promised protection, resources, and peace. Humanity's future seemed bright. But hidden behind this peaceful alliance, something dark was happening. The Galactic Council, the very group that had promised to protect Earth, had other plans. They saw Earth's growing power and influence as a threat. The humans, who had once been a minor species in the galaxy, were becoming too strong, too self-sufficient. The Galactic Council feared that Earth might one day challenge their authority. In secret meetings and behind closed doors, the Council began to plot. They would cut off Earth's access to vital resources. They would restrict the trade routes that Earth depended on for survival. But most dangerously, they would stop Earth from growing any further. To do this, they needed to crush humanity's hope, to strip them of their most important tools, the resources that allowed Earth to thrive. For weeks, the Council's plans unfolded in the shadows, hidden from the eyes of the humans. They discussed their strategy in the most secure chambers, where no one outside the Council could listen. No one would ever suspect that the beings they trusted the most would soon betray them. But there was one person who knew the truth, a high-ranking member of the Galactic Council who had always believed in fairness and justice, had discovered the plan. He could not ignore the betrayal. His name was Oran, a species known for their wisdom and sharp instincts. Oran had served the Council for decades, always upholding their rules and ideals. But what he had learned about the Council's plans shook him to his core. Oran had always believed in peace, but he had never expected the Council to betray one of their own members, let alone Earth. He knew that Earth, though still young in the eyes of the galaxy, had proven itself to be resilient and brave. They had worked hard to become part of the Council, and they had earned their place. Oran knew he had to act quickly. If he stayed silent, the Council would succeed in their plans, and Earth would fall. He couldn't let that happen. But what could he do? He was just one member of a powerful group. If he spoke out, he would risk everything: his career, his reputation, and even his life. But in his heart, he knew it was the right thing to do. Oran decided to take a risk. He couldn't expose the Council directly, not yet. Instead, he would send a message to Earth. It was the only way to warn them in time. Oran worked in secret, using a hidden channel that only a few trusted members of the Council knew about. He knew that if the Council found out, they would silence him forever. But for now, he couldn't worry about that. Earth needed to know. The message was brief but clear. It was encrypted, so only the leaders of Earth could read it. Oran couldn't send too much information, just enough to give Earth a chance to prepare. The Council is planning to betray you. They will strip you of your resources. Act quickly, was all it said. Then, Oran sent it into the vastness of space, praying it would reach the right people. But what Oran didn't know was that the Council was already aware of his actions. They had been monitoring him for some time, suspecting that he might become a problem. They had been watching his every move, and they had already begun to prepare for his betrayal. The Council had people in place to stop him if he ever tried to expose their plans. Despite the risks, Oran didn't back down. He had done what he could to warn Earth, but now it was up to them to take action. Oran had to disappear. He couldn't afford to be caught. If the Council found him, they would silence him for good. His heart raced as he gathered his things and prepared to leave. It was too dangerous to stay in one place for long. Oran's message reached Earth just days before the Council's attack began. The warning was clear, but the question remained: would humanity believe it in time? Most of Earth's leaders were skeptical. They had been a part of the Council for so long, and they couldn't imagine that such a powerful group would betray them. They dismissed the message as a misunderstanding, a mistake. But a few of Earth's leaders, those who had always been cautious, took it seriously. They knew something was wrong. While the majority of the planet remained unaware of the looming danger, a small group of Earth's top military and scientific minds began to prepare. They worked in secret, assembling a small elite team to investigate the Council's true intentions. They couldn't afford to make a mistake. If Orian's warning was true, Earth would need to act fast. But time was running out. The Galactic Council had made its move. Earth was about to face a betrayal unlike anything it had ever seen. Would humanity survive this deadly plot, or would they be crushed under the weight of the Council's treachery? The fate of Earth hung in the balance. The countdown begins. The moment Orian's warning reached Earth, a sense of unease began to settle over the planet. But it wasn't the whole world that felt it, just a select few. Those who knew the truth. The rest remained blissfully unaware, trusting that the Galactic Council would never betray them. The leaders who had received the message debated what to do, torn between disbelief and the dawning realization that something sinister was at play. Humanity had always been proud of its resilience, its ability to rise above adversity. But this was different. This wasn't just a simple threat. The Galactic Council was an empire that spanned the stars, with technology far beyond anything Earth could muster. The fact that they might be preparing to strike was enough to send chills down the spine of any leader. A secret meeting was held among Earth's highest-ranking officials. They gathered in an undisclosed location, far away from prying eyes. The atmosphere in the room was tense, thick with uncertainty. They had no evidence, no way of knowing if Orian's warning was true. But there was one thing that all of them agreed on. The stakes were too high to ignore. "The Council has never shown any signs of aggression toward us," said General Aldrich, a grizzled veteran of Earth's military. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the doubt that lingered in his mind. "We've been allies for years. We're an important part of their system." "That's exactly what worries me," replied Dr. Leah Simmons, one of Earth's top strategists. Her brow furrowed as she paced the room. "We've become too self-sufficient, too strong. If the Council feels threatened, they might do anything to neutralize us. We've always been at their mercy," said President Harper, the leader of Earth's United Nations. He clenched his fists on the table, frustration creeping into his voice. "But if Orian's warning is true, we have no choice but to act." The room fell silent. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air. If the Galactic Council had truly turned against Earth, what could they do? Earth had no fleet large enough to challenge such a powerful adversary. And yet something in the back of their minds told them they could not afford to back down. "We need to investigate," Dr. Simmons insisted, her voice firm. "Orian may have given us a crucial head start, but it's not enough to act on a single message. We need hard evidence." "We don't have time to waste," General Aldrich interjected. "If the Council has already made their move, we could be facing an all-out assault at any moment." President Harper nodded solemnly, making his decision. "Agreed. I'll authorize a covert operation to uncover the truth. We'll send a team to investigate the Council's plans. But we have to be careful. We don't know who we can trust." The plan was set in motion quickly. A small, elite team of Earth's most skilled agents was assembled. Military strategists, scientists, and tech experts who could infiltrate the heart of the Galactic Council's power. Their mission was to gather information, confirm Orian's warning, and, if possible, find a way to stop the Council before it was too late. But even as the team prepared for their dangerous mission, another group was already watching, waiting. The Galactic Council had long since become aware of the potential threat from Orian's betrayal. They had begun to monitor Earth's movements, and the warning that had been sent to Earth had not gone unnoticed. In the dark corridors of the Galactic Council's headquarters, a high-ranking official named Zolthar stood before a large screen, watching the operations of Earth's elite team. Zolthar was ruthless and calculating, known for his cold demeanor and unwavering loyalty to the Council's interests. He had no doubt that Orian's betrayal was real, and he knew that Earth would be a problem. The Council had already mobilized its forces, ships, weapons, and spies were being ready for a swift strike against Earth. Zolthar knew that the time for subtlety had passed. He had to act quickly, before Earth could rally its forces in defense. The countdown to war had begun. Zolthar's orders were clear. Destroy Earth's resistance before they can uncover the truth. We cannot afford to let them thwart our plans. As the final preparations were made on both sides, the planet Earth stood on the brink of a crisis it had never imagined. The Galactic Council, once an ally, now saw Earth as a threat. But humanity was not ready to be crushed under the weight of betrayal. They had fought for their place in the galaxy before, and if they had to, they would fight again. As the elite team gathered their resources and made their move, the tension in the air was palpable. No one knew how long they had before the council struck, or if they would even be able to stop it. But one thing was certain. Earth's survival now rested on the courage of those willing to take a stand against the most powerful empire in the galaxy. The countdown to humanity's greatest challenge had begun. Would Earth's leaders uncover the truth in time? Or would the Council's betrayal leave Earth powerless, a pawn in a galactic game they could not win? The hidden forces. The elite team was ready. They had spent the last few days preparing for the covert mission, checking their gear and finalizing their strategies. They would be venturing into uncharted territory, trying to uncover the truth behind the Galactic Council's betrayal. But every step they took brought them closer to danger. Their mission was delicate, and failure was not an option. Commander Leah Daniels, the team leader, stood at the front of the operations room, scanning over the mission details one final time. She was a seasoned veteran, known for her calm under pressure and quick decision-making. Her team trusted her implicitly, but even she could feel the weight of the responsibility pressing down on her. "We have one shot at this," she said, her voice firm. "We need to uncover the truth about the Council's plans without alerting them. We'll be operating in the heart of their territory. Stealth is key." The team nodded in agreement, each member knowing that the stakes were higher than ever before. Their mission would take them to the Galactic Council's central hub, a massive space station located in the heart of the Council's power. Getting in was the easy part. Getting out was another story. The plan was simple but risky. They would use a stolen Council ship, one that had been carefully modified to mimic the Council's own vessels. Their goal was to infiltrate the space station, locate the Council's inner sanctum, and gather evidence of their treachery. If they could do that, they would have the leverage needed to expose the Council's true intentions to the galaxy. But as they made their way through space toward the Council's headquarters, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Leah had trusted the intelligence they had gathered, but it was starting to feel like someone, or something, knew they were coming. As the ship approached the station, they began to experience strange fluctuations in the ship's systems. At first, it was nothing more than a few odd blips on the radar, but soon it became clear that something was wrong. The ship's cloaking device, which had been working perfectly until now, began to flicker and malfunction. "Hold tight," Leah called out, gripping the controls. "We've got some interference. Stay sharp, everyone." The crew members worked quickly, trying to stabilize the ship's systems, but it was clear they weren't alone. A faint but unmistakable signal appeared on the ship's radar, another vessel, coming up fast behind them. The Galactic Council had found them. "We're being pursued," said Lieutenant David Chen, the ship's pilot. His voice was tense, but he was trying to stay focused. "They must have detected our cloaking system. We're not going to make it to the station undetected." Leah's heart raced. The stakes had just been raised. If they didn't act quickly, they would be caught and exposed before they could even get close to the Council's headquarters. But the team had no choice. They had to push forward. "Activate the emergency thrusters," Leah ordered. "We need to outrun them and buy ourselves some time. Once we're clear, we can make the jump to the station." The crew worked together to power up the thrusters, and the ship lurched forward, accelerating at a breakneck pace. The pursuing Council ship wasn't far behind, and it was closing in fast. Leah could see the flashing lights of the enemy ship growing brighter in the distance. They didn't have much time. As the ship hurtled through space, Leah's mind raced. She couldn't afford to lose this fight. The survival of Earth depended on them getting to the Council's inner sanctum. If they failed, humanity might never have another chance to expose the truth. Suddenly, an alert flashed on the control panel. A laser blast from the pursuing ship had hit the hull, and the ship's shields were beginning to fail. "We've got damage," Chen shouted. "We're not going to last much longer at this rate." Leah's mind went into overdrive. She needed to think fast. The Council's ship was faster and better armed, but they had something the Council didn't: the element of surprise. If they couldn't outrun the enemy, they would have to outsmart them. "Prepare the decoys," Leah barked. "We'll drop them behind us and make a quick course change. That should throw them off." The crew scrambled to deploy the decoys, small drones that mimicked the ship's signature and could confuse enemy targeting systems. Leah's pulse quickened as she watched the countdown to the launch. 3, 2, 1, now, she shouted. The decoys shot out from the back of their ship, releasing a cloud of false signals. The enemy ship reacted immediately, firing its weapons at the decoys. The explosion of energy sent shockwaves through space, but it gave Leah and her crew the opening they needed. "Now, full speed ahead," Leah ordered. With the pursuing ship temporarily distracted, Leah pushed the ship's thrusters to their limits. They shot forward, narrowly escaping the danger. For now, they had bought themselves the moment of breathing room. The team was still on edge, but they had made it past the first hurdle. The Galactic Council knew they were coming, and they were prepared to do whatever it took to stop them. But for the moment, Leah's crew had succeeded in their mission. They were one step closer to uncovering the truth about the Council's betrayal. "Stay focused," Leah reminded her crew. "We've made it this far, but the real challenge is still ahead of us. We need to get into that station and find the evidence. Humanity's future depends on what we do next." As they continued their journey toward the Galactic Council's stronghold, the team could feel the weight of their mission. Every second counted, and every choice could mean the difference between life and death. The countdown was on. Would they be able to expose the Council's betrayal before it was too late? The breach. The stars outside the ship stretched and warped as they entered hyperspace, the bright streaks fading into distant dots of light. Inside the cramped, tense confines of their stolen ship, Commander Leah Daniels and her crew were on high alert. The decoys had worked, but they knew it was only a matter of time before the Galactic Council's ships regrouped. They had to reach the heart of the enemy's operations. Fast. "We're almost there," Lieutenant David Chin said, his voice tinged with both anticipation and caution. His hands hovered over the controls as he guided the ship through the twisting lanes of hyperspace. "But I don't like the silence. Something's wrong." Leah nodded grimly, her mind calculating the odds. The Galactic Council wasn't known for being predictable, and it was unlikely they would let this intrusion go unnoticed for long. She could feel it in the air, the calm before the storm. "All systems are stable for now," Lieutenant Maria Vasquez, the ship's engineer, reported. "But we'll have to make repairs as soon as we land. The damage from the blast earlier was more severe than we anticipated." Leah glanced at the rest of the crew. Their eyes were weary, their nerves frayed from the harrowing chase they had just escaped. But there was no time for rest. The mission was far from over. "We'll make it to the station," Leah said, trying to reassure her team. "We can't afford to fail now." She moved to the communications panel, sending a short transmission to Earth, just in case they were able to get a brief window of contact with command. "This is Commander Daniels. We're on track, but we're running out of time. We'll have to go in hot. Prepare for a potential full-out assault if things go sideways. I'll update you as soon as we're inside." She closed the comms with a grim expression. Her pulse quickened. The stakes were higher than ever before. The ship dropped out of hyperspace with a sudden jolt, and the crew tensed. Before them, the gargantuan Galactic Council space station loomed, a fortress of steel and shining metal. It was the heart of the Council's power, a place where decisions were made that shaped the fate of countless civilizations, and today it would be the site of humanity's reckoning. "There it is," Chen said, his voice low. "Looks like we're not the only ones who've arrived." Leah's eyes flicked to the scanner. A number of ships were docked in the station's outer orbit, and more were incoming. They'd been detected. The Council was already preparing for battle. "We'll need to land without being noticed," Leah said, setting her jaw. "Switch to manual control. We'll have to fly under the radar." Chen hesitated for a moment, but then complied. He had always trusted Leah's judgment, even when the odds seemed impossible. As he brought the ship closer to the station, the crew held their breath. They were dangerously close now, just beyond the looming shadows of the station's outer defense grid. Leah saw the narrow opening, a small, unguarded docking bay that had been overlooked by the station's sensors. Their only chance. With a steady hand, Chen guided the ship into the opening, the sound of metal scraping against the docking bay's protective shields vibrating through the hull. The ship was in, barely, but it was enough. "Now we move fast," Leah said, her voice tight with determination. "We've got a lot of ground to cover, and we don't have much time." She activated the ship's internal security systems and signaled for her crew to suit up. The sudden noise of clanking armor echoed through the ship as they prepared for the mission of their lives. Once they left the relative safety of their vessel, they would be walking straight into enemy territory. As they disembarked, Leah couldn't shake the feeling that the real danger had just begun. The station's interior was a maze of narrow hallways and towering chambers. They had to find the Galactic Council's central command, where the secrets of humanity's betrayal were hidden, and extract it before they were discovered. But they had one advantage: the element of surprise. The Council might have caught wind of their arrival, but they didn't know where the team had landed. The crew had a few precious moments to move undetected, but once that window closed, everything would change. The team moved in tight formation, their footsteps echoing softly in the empty corridors. As they rounded a corner, they encountered their first obstacle: a pair of Council guards. They were chatting casually, unaware of the intruders only a few feet away. Leah signaled for her team to stop. They had to make their move quickly and silently. The team was skilled, and the element of surprise was still on their side. Leah turned to Sergeant James Holt, the team's best combat specialist. "Take them out quietly." Holt nodded and advanced swiftly, his movements fluid and practiced. Within moments, the two guards were neutralized, silent and swift. "We need to move, now," Leah urged, her voice low but urgent. They pressed forward, moving deeper into the station's heart. As they got closer to their objective, the tension in the air thickened. The stakes had never been higher, and the weight of humanity's future rested on their success. Leah couldn't help but wonder, was this all part of the Galactic Council's plan? Had they anticipated this attack? Or were they truly as vulnerable as they seemed? The deeper they went, the more the feeling of danger hung over them. The Council had never been a forgiving foe. Every step was a risk. But Leah and her crew were determined to see this through. They had come this far. Now there was no turning back. As they approached the central command room, Leah's pulse quickened. They were getting closer to the truth. What they discovered next would change everything. But would they survive to expose it? The truth revealed. The air in the station grew colder as Leah and her team moved deeper into the heart of the Galactic Council's stronghold. The walls were lined with strange alien technology, humming softly, as if aware of their intrusion. The deeper they ventured, the more oppressive the silence became. Only their footsteps and the occasional hiss of a door opening echoed through the metallic halls. Leah's mind raced. She had been preparing for this moment for months, but nothing could have prepared her for what they were about to discover. The Galactic Council was powerful, ruthless, and manipulative. Yet they had made a critical mistake by betraying Earth. The price for that betrayal was going to be steep. "We're getting close," Leah whispered, glancing at the map on her wrist console. The command room, the beating heart of the Council's operation, was just ahead. This was where the truth lay hidden. The crew moved in tight formation, their weapons drawn, eyes scanning for any sign of danger. They were almost there, but Leah knew that the last stretch was always the hardest. Every step felt heavier, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. As they rounded the corner, the door to the central command room loomed ahead. It was a massive, reinforced steel barrier, humming with power. But it wasn't locked. It was as if they were expected. Leah motioned for the team to stop. They were in the final stretch, and every second counted. She approached the door cautiously, her hand hovering over the control panel. One wrong move, and they'd be exposed. With a silent nod from her team, she pressed the button, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was bathed in a soft, eerie glow. At the far end of the chamber, a giant holographic display floated, showing a map of the galaxy. Several alien figures stood around a large table, discussing the fate of countless worlds. But there was no time to observe them. Leah's focus shifted to the console at the far end of the room, where the data they needed would be stored. The team quickly fanned out, covering all exits and potential threats. Maria Vasquez, the ship's engineer, took point and began to hack into the system. She moved with precision, typing quickly and efficiently, bypassing security protocols that would have taken others hours. Leah could see the tension in her face. This was the moment of truth. The holographic figures at the table didn't notice them. Their conversations were muffled by the low hum of the room, as if the station itself was trying to keep the secrets hidden. Leah's heart pounded in her chest. They were so close now, but she could feel the weight of the Council's power pressing down on them. If they were caught now, the consequences would be disastrous. The galaxy was watching, and Leah knew that this mission had the potential to change the course of history. After what felt like an eternity, Maria's voice broke the silence. "Got it. I'm in." The holographic display flickered, and a series of encrypted files appeared on the screen. Maria quickly began downloading them, her fingers dancing over the console with practiced speed. Leah moved to stand beside her, her eyes scanning the documents that were beginning to load. The truth was finally within reach. "What's in there?" asked Lieutenant Chen, his voice barely a whisper. Leah didn't answer right away. She was focused on the information in front of her. The first file opened, revealing classified data detailing the Galactic Council's covert operations over the last several decades. It was a list of betrayed species, planets abandoned, and alliances broken, all in the name of power and control. But then her eyes locked on something even more shocking. A single sentence buried deep in the files. "Humanity's destruction is necessary for the survival of the Empire." Leah's breath caught in her throat. It was worse than she had imagined. The Council had not just betrayed Earth for political advantage. They had planned to wipe out humanity entirely, to prevent humans from becoming a threat to their galactic dominance. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the data, the full scope of the betrayal unfolding before her eyes. The Galactic Council had already begun deploying fleets to Earth to invade and obliterate humanity before they could rise up. But the most disturbing revelation came when she reached the final file. It was marked Project Extinction, a covert operation to deploy a weapon capable of annihilating entire planets, one that was already being prepared for Earth. "Maria, get the rest of this data out of here, now," Leah ordered, her voice cold with fury. "We have to expose them before they launch the weapon." Maria's hands flew over the console as she copied the files to a secure drive. But as she worked, a sudden alarm blared throughout the station, its shrill sound echoing down the corridors. "We've been detected," Chen yelled, his voice tight with panic. Leah didn't waste a second. "Get the data, now," she shouted, as the crew scrambled to backtrack toward the exit. We can't leave without it." But it was too late. The room's lights flickered, and the doors slammed shut, locking them inside. The holographic figures that had been standing around the table now turned toward them, their eyes glowing with a malicious light. "Human scum," one of the aliens sneered, stepping forward. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what you want?" Leah drew her weapon, her heart pounding with adrenaline. The fight was just beginning. The fate of humanity was on the line, and she wouldn't let the Galactic Council destroy everything they had fought for. She knew they couldn't let this opportunity slip away. They had to expose the truth, no matter the cost. The battle was on. The price of betrayal. Leah's heart hammered in her chest as the doors slammed shut behind them. The cold metallic hum of the Galactic Council's stronghold pulsed in the air, echoing her panic. The alarms rang louder, a harsh, shrill noise that reverberated through every fiber of her being. The crew had been discovered, but Leah couldn't afford to panic. Not now. The lives of billions, the future of humanity, depended on what they did next. She glanced over her shoulder at her team, their faces tense and determined. They weren't backing down, not after everything they had fought for. "Get to the extraction point now," Leah ordered, her voice firm, cutting through the noise. She wasn't sure how much time they had, but they couldn't stay here. The data in their possession was the key to everything. It was their ticket to exposing the Council's treachery, and they had to make it out alive. As they turned to run, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from down the hall. They weren't alone anymore. The Galactic Council's soldiers were coming, armed and ready. Their footsteps grew louder with each passing second, a promise of violence. "We need a plan," Lieutenant Chen hissed, his hand gripping the side of his weapon as he scanned their surroundings. "There's no way we'll make it to the extraction point with them on our tail." Leah didn't answer immediately. Her mind raced, searching for any way out. She'd been trained for situations like this, but there was no denying it. This was different. They were deep in enemy territory, with no reinforcements and no way to call for help. "Split up," Leah finally said, her voice cold with resolve. "You three, head toward the left corridor. We'll take the right. Keep moving, and don't stop until you're on the ship." Chen looked like he wanted to argue, but Leah was already moving. The others followed her lead without hesitation. There was no time to waste. Every moment they stayed in the station brought them closer to death. As Leah and her team sprinted down the right corridor, the sound of pursuit echoed from behind them. The soldiers were closing in. Leah glanced over her shoulder for a split second, just enough to see the gleaming eyes of their enemies, their faces contorted in rage. They had been caught, and now they would pay the price. The pressure was building. Leah's mind was laser-focused on one thing: getting to the data room. It was the only hope they had left. But there was one problem. Everything was getting too close. The soldiers were just too fast. "Here," Maria shouted, pointing to a small door on the left. "We can take this route." Without hesitation, Leah shoved the door open, and they rushed inside. The room was small, filled with crates and old tech, but it offered them a brief respite. They had to move quickly. Leah took a deep breath and motioned for the team to huddle together. "We need to find a way to send this information to Earth. If we don't expose the Council now, they'll use that weapon. Billions will die. We cannot fail." Her words hung heavy in the air. The truth was out now. The Council didn't just want to control the galaxy. They wanted to eradicate humanity. The reality of their situation hit harder than ever before, but Leah didn't flinch. This was what they had trained for. This was the reason they were here. "We'll figure it out," Maria said, looking down at the data drive she had secured moments before. "I'll find a way to get it to Earth, but we need a way out." The sound of approaching footsteps made Leah's stomach drop. They didn't have much time. If they were discovered here, they wouldn't make it out alive. But she couldn't let that happen. She had too much to lose. "On my signal," Leah whispered, "we make a run for it. We're going straight to the hangar. No detours. No hesitation. As the seconds ticked by, the footsteps grew louder. The soldiers were getting closer. Maria took a deep breath and nodded. Ready. Leah motioned for the others to stand. Then, with a final glance toward the door, she bolted, leading the charge through the narrow corridors. The other members of the team followed suit, adrenaline surging through their veins as they ran with everything they had. They were so close now. Just a few more corridors, and they'd reach the hangar. But Leah knew the risks. Every corner was a potential ambush. Every step could be their last. The enemy was ruthless, and they wouldn't stop until they had caught them. But Leah wasn't about to let that happen. She couldn't. Not after everything they had done. The final battle was still ahead, but they would win. They had to, for humanity's sake. As they turned a corner, Leah saw it. An open hangar door, the last barrier between them and the stars. The hope of survival. They pushed forward with renewed determination. But just as they neared the door, the sound of blaster fire echoed through the halls, and Leah ducked instinctively, her heart racing in her chest. The final confrontation was beginning. They hadn't escaped yet. The Galactic Council wasn't going down without a fight. The final stand. The hangar door loomed before them, a symbol of their last hope. But as they dashed forward, the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. Leah's heart pounded in her chest. They weren't going to make it, not with the Galactic Council's soldiers closing in. She could feel the weight of their mission on her shoulders. Every decision, and every second counting for more than her own life. Move, 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 Leah shouted, urging her team forward. They reached the hangar just as the door began to close. Without a second thought, Leah ran toward the control panel, fingers flying over the keypad. The door was just moments away from sealing shut, trapping them inside with the soldiers. Come on, she muttered under her breath, hoping the controls would work. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she desperately pressed a sequence of buttons, praying that she could override the system in time. The sound of blaster fire echoed behind them, followed by a yell. They had been spotted. They had only moments before they would be overwhelmed. Leah's mind raced as the door creaked, inching shut. Got it, Leah shouted, just as the door froze mid-motion, staying open long enough for them to slip through. The sounds of the soldiers' footsteps grew louder, but Leah's crew had made it through. With a sigh of relief, Leah quickly turned to her team. Get to the ship. Now. But as they moved toward the waiting shuttle, a harsh voice rang out from behind them. The Galactic Council's soldiers had caught up. You think you can escape, humans. You'll never leave here alive. A soldier sneered, raising his weapon. Leah turned, her eyes narrowing with fury. She could see the soldiers advancing, their weapons aimed at her team. The shuttle was only a few meters away, but it felt like miles with the blaster fire closing in. Don't stop, she ordered, but she couldn't ignore the truth. There was no easy way out. The soldiers were everywhere. They were going to need a miracle to make it out alive. Suddenly, the sound of engines roaring filled the air. Leah's heart skipped a beat as she turned to look toward the horizon. A fleet of ships, human-made, was emerging from the shadows. The Earth's stealth fleet, which had been hidden in the dark corners of space, was here. Take cover, Leah shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. The Earth fleet's weapons came online in an instant, unleashing a barrage of fire that lit up the sky. The Galactic Council's soldiers scattered, but it was too late. The fleet had arrived, and they weren't holding back. Blasts of energy whizzed through the air, striking the Council's ships and soldiers alike. Leah's eyes widened in disbelief. The tide had turned. Humanity's fleet, underestimated and ignored by the Council for so long, was making its move, and it was overwhelming. The soldiers who had once stalked them were now fleeing in terror. This is it, Maria whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos. We've won. Leah didn't have time to savor the moment. The shuttle was ready, And there was no time to waste. With the Earth fleet providing cover, they made a final sprint toward the shuttle. As they boarded, Leah took one last look at the Galactic Council's stronghold. The once mighty empire that had plotted humanity's downfall was now crumbling, defeated by the very species it had sought to destroy. The shuttle's doors closed behind them, sealing them inside the safety of their ship. Leah leaned back in her seat, exhaustion flooding through her, but there was no time for rest. There was still much to do. "Prepare for launch," she commanded, her voice steady. The shuttle lifted off, breaking through the atmosphere and into the stars. The fight wasn't over, but the victory they had just achieved would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. Leah's mind swirled with thoughts of the future. The Galactic Council had betrayed Earth, but humanity had fought back. They had survived, and they had won. But this was just the beginning. The Council's betrayal would be remembered, and the price they paid would resonate through the galaxy for years to come. Humanity had proven its worth. Now the galaxy would never forget that. As the stars stretched out before them, Leah's heart swelled with pride. They had been underestimated, but no longer. The Earth fleet had arrived, and humanity's place in the galaxy had been solidified. The final battle was over, and they had won. The Council had paid the ultimate price.